The task of breaking a bad habit is like uprooting a powerful oak within us, and the task of building a new habit is like cultivating a delicate flower one day at a time. Welcome to AMI Audiobook Review, the weekly podcast where we chat all things audiobooks. I'm your host, Ramya Amuthan, and the quote of the week is from a book that we read last month for one of our book clubs, Amer's Evening Book Club, actually, and it's by James Clear. It's called Atomic Habits, an easy and improved way to build new habits and break old ones. Now, you may or may not have read this book, but I'm sure you've heard about it. Regardless, it was trending all over the place ever since it came out. And I think that the reason why I picked this quote is because, current life circumstances, building habits, breaking old ones, and also kind of confronting what are good habits and bad is a pretty big deal also. Nasreen, am I correct in assuming that you read this book a while back or wanted to?
I did.
Okay.
I did. It was pretty good.
Yeah? Did you learn anything? Like, was there one thing you kind of, that stuck with you?
Honestly, when I read a book, I forget it right away.
Oh, my. Cancel that confession
true?
On the show.
Can we honestly confess that? Can we admit that?
I guess. Are we calling this a safe space? Okay, sure.
It is a safe space because I feel like a lot of, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, when I listen to a book or read a book, I feel like at a certain point, okay, it's a blur. Like I remember like a bit of it.
Maybe you should slow it down. This sounds like a problem that I used to have when I sped up all my books.
Really? Because my sister has the same problem too.
She doesn't even do audiobooks. Oops.
Yeah, she actually reads the book too.
Okay,
and she reads a lot.
Well, that's her thing, right? Mm-hmm. She reads a lot. Amir Khan reads a lot. And if he were to say, yeah, I can't retain all the books I read, then I'd be like, okay, facts. But with me, I don't know if you and I have the excuse, girl.
No,
but, we already established that it's a safe space, so we can't go back on that. All right. You have some book talk for us, but before we do that, let's sprint through the CELA homepage. If you visit the CELA library, CELA-library.ca, this is the Center for Equitable Library Access, you will find 3 featured titles right on that homepage. And the 3 that are up there right now are Vera Wong's Unsolicited Advice for Murderers. This is by Jesse Q. Suntanto. And this is a Mysteries and Crime Stories. We also have a climate book by Greta Thunberg. And this is, of course, about the environment. And the last one up there is The White Lady by Jacqueline Winspire. Historical fiction for those of you who are fans or wanting to check it out. Okay, Nez, over to you. Book news.
So, book news, we have a topic that you'll love, Rams. It's one of Audible's bestsellers right now is Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone.
Right now?
Number 1. Yeah, it's been like that for the past couple of weeks. I've seen it on Audible's bestsellers. I don't know. And it brings up the fact that there's some books that I feel like stays trending.
Huh.
There's some books that stay trending for a while, but when it comes to Harry Potter, I mean, like, that's an old book. So I'm just saying, when it comes to these iconic books, do you feel like you're not surprised, or are you still surprised that they're trending?
Well, I'm usually not surprised that it's obviously still big, still being borrowed from libraries, still being bought with Audible credits, but what I try to understand is when there's a big surge like this, what that's springing from, right? So when there was all this controversy around J.K. Rowling and her stance with gender equality, I'll just say it that way. Yeah. There was a big surge in Harry Potter purchases, but that was around this, right? Yeah. Whereas now, if you're saying, okay, it's trending all over again, I'm like, where did that come from? Like, is there something new? Is it a cover change? Something. else that's going on outside the book world that has to do with Harry Potter that's making it big again? I don't know.
Yeah, so this just got me thinking that this is going to be my next book to read. So I'm so excited because I never...
Don't tease, girl. Don't tease.
I'm going to tell you this. And I think you know this about me, but I've never read a Harry Potter book. I just watched the movies.
Oh, okay. You watched the movies at least. Yeah, so you have some context.
No, I love Harry Potter movies. Okay. But I never read the books because, you know, my history, losing my vision, blah, 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 blah.
You really pulled that card. Okay.
Yeah, I pulled that card.
All right. Well, you know what? I'm not going to get excited now. I'll get excited when you actually start reading.
Wow. So
is
you
that
have
fair?
No faith.
No, not that. I don't want to be disappointed. It's different. It's different.
Okay.
It's different.
Wrap it up then.
Awesome. All right. We're going to come back, have Know Your Narrator with Sara Hillis. Maybe Harry Potter will come up again. I don't know. I don't plan these things. They just happen. But on Know Your Narrator, we are highlighting the 2023 Audie winner for Best Female Narrator with Sara Hillis. We'll be back. You're listening to AMI Audiobook Review, the weekly podcast where we chat all things audiobooks. And once a month, we get into Know Your Narrator with Sara Hillis. And this is where Sara, you feature some of the voices in our audiobook world. And we shout out their backgrounds, their lives. They're very interesting people, so we get to know more than just what they offer us when they narrate our books. And this month's feature, we did like a back and forth. This is kind of part 2, but Rosamund Pike is the 2023 Audie winner for Best Female Narrator, and this was awarded for her work on The Eye of the World by Robert Jordan. And last month we featured Best Male Narrator for 2023 Audie Award, so it's just fitting to go this way.
Well, yeah. I mean, gotta do that. The Audies were in March, so that's what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
April and May, packed for Know Your Narrator. So tell us a bit about Rosamund. Is she new to you, by the way?
Yeah, Rosamund Pike is new to me. I had not watched the Wheel of Time series. She's in it as an actress for Amazon Prime. I hadn't watched this because I hadn't ever read the books, and I don't like to watch a big epic fantasy series like that unless I've at least read some of the books. I just feel that way about it. So typically. So when I heard that she'd won, I didn't even know these books had been re-released. I should have thought they might have been because, you do that. You capitalize on new things a lot. And then when I heard her say, she was just so sort of really grateful to get the award, and she seemed really, and then, really privileged to have done the narration and stuff. And I thought that was really cool. So I thought, well, I got to read these books now. And there's 2 of them out now, and the third one's coming out in June. She's just done a really great job. I had no idea she was in Gone Girl, for example.
Oh.
She was Amy Dunn. She was the Gone Girl. And holy gosh, like I'd seen the movie, but I didn't know who was I just knew Ben Affleck was the guy, right? I didn't know who was the girl.
That's why all of us watched it. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. And so I had no idea this was the same woman. And when I learned about her, I just thought, well, this is a great one for Know Your Narrator. There's so much cool stuff about Rosamund. She was born in 1979, so like a year younger than me. She's done so much stuff with her life. Anyway, she was born. Her mom and dad were Julian Pike and Caroline Friend, and they were kind of opera singers in, I guess, England generally. And she's born in London, England. And I feel she must have learned a lot about, voice work and stuff just by being in a house with her parents. Like I would think you would just know what it is to take care of your voice and that kind of thing, right? She went to the badminton school, possibly the school that the games end up being named after. I'm not really sure, but in Bristol, she went to what they call a public school in England, which is kind of more like a prep school here in North America. The fancy kind of posh boarding school type idea, right? So she went to that, and then she didn't get into any of her theater schools, but she'd been doing a lot of theater. And so she applied for theater university or college theater, and she didn't get into those schools. But she'd been working with the National Youth Theater, doing like Shakespeare and lots of other things. And but she did get into Oxford, Wadham College at Oxford, to read English literature. That means study English literature in England. So she did that. Also, while continuing to just act and direct. And she was in some plays by David Hare, some plays by Arthur Miller. Again, more Shakespeare during her sort of university days. And then while she was working at the National Youth Theater with Romeo and Juliet, she was discovered by an agent. So that really helped to launch her career on a little bigger scale. Started doing some British sort of guest appearances in British TV shows, which I'm not familiar with them, but they were just various, like, you need a character in a mystery show or something, and for one episode, and she'd be in those kinds of things.
And this is what, during her year off school, or this is when her actual career kicked off?
It sort of started during her year off school. She took a year off, and then after she graduated, she kept doing these kinds of roles.
What a woman. I love this. She's like, oh, no theater school will take me. I'll just go into English and then end up doing theater and TV anyways. I love it.
Oh, yeah. She kept just making her career for herself and
grinding.
And with the help of her agent, of course, too. And she'd be the first to say that. She has a really good agent that he doesn't tend to feed her roles that she doesn't want to do and that would kind of mess with her career kind of thing. He's really, sensitive to that. So that's really cool. She was in Die Another Day. That was her first sort of film role, was in Bond. Okay. As a sort of Bond girl / aide to James Bond, I think. Kind of a two-dimensional or double kind of character, I suppose. Oh, yeah. And she did some more Bond in 2013. It was World's End. She was in that. She's been in some Bond like documentaries, like Bond Girls Forever and that kind of thing. I think she really liked the whole James Bond experience, which is fun to do. And of course, because of that, she's narrated some of the Bond books. Of course, The Spy Who Loved Me, things like that, right?
Was it after? Like she did the Bond films and then came to the books?
Yeah, I think she narrated the sort of new editions of some of the books after. I think specifically more after World's End and later. But and in 2005, she did one of those obligatory sort of period pieces that a lot of young actresses get to do, Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley. She was Jane Bennett. Keira Knightley was Elizabeth Bennet. And so she was a supporting role, but she was good, I thought. And then basically did some more movies, some more British movies. The Libertine with who was that actor? He's a famous British actor, and I can't think who he was. But she was in that. She won some independent film awards for that, and she was in a Canadian film. She was in Barney's Version, which is a film of one of our great. Mordecai Richler did that book, didn't he? I think he did. One of our great Canadian authors. So there was a film of that. And then her what she credits as her major acting role is Gone Girl in 2014. David Fincher wanted a lesser known celebrity or actress to be Amy Dunn, the character in Gone Girl, which is based on Gillian Flynn's novel. And Rosamund Pike has this ability to do pretty good American dialect. And she I just thought she would have been one of the actresses around at the time. I had never seen the credits, so when I'd watched it originally, so I had no idea it was an English person doing the movie.
That's how you know it was good.
Yeah, it was great, and so she really credits Fincher with giving her a lot of on-camera time and getting her really going. And then of course she did I Care a Lot. If you've ever seen that on Netflix, it's from 2020, I think, and it's about this horrible woman called Marla Grayson, who's a legal guardian that gets appointed if you have to, if you're a vulnerable person and you don't have any family to look after, you get appointed a legal guardian, and of course she's just trying to get money out of the whole situation, and she gets her comeuppance in this movie, like in a major way. But
savage character. Okay.
Yeah, really amazing. So she's done lots of different kinds of roles, and as far as I can tell with her narration, it seems to have started in 2006, but that's as far as I can see on Audible. So with Macmillan Audio, doing a book called Restless by William Boyd, and then she did some Bond things. She's been in some BBC radio dramas, of course. A lot of British actors go through that whole coaching and amazing stuff that they can give you. This was her first Audie for The Wheel of Time, and I feel like people were a little surprised it was her, but if you listen to the books, she deserved that award.
Of course.
I mean, it's an amazing job, and she really loved. She did the narration after she'd shot the first season of the series, and she thought, "What this just adds a whole new dimension to my understanding of what this is about," and like she's really invested in it, I would say.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I heard a bit of her narration for the performance that she won her Audie for, and I was really, really impressed by her changes of tone. It's not even tone necessarily, but her scale, I would say, right? Like how she goes from much deeper voices to something more neutral to something higher. And I thought that's really interesting. And I haven't even checked out any of her acting yet. So I'm very curious about how she channels, as we've talked about with other narrators.
Yeah, she obviously can use the full range of her voice. She creates voices in her head for what the characters should be, like reading the book first, of course, and she says she draws lines all over her scripts that nobody could really understand except her. But she so she goes, okay, that's supposed to be like this, so then she draws a thing that makes her understand what she's supposed to do for the next bit, and then she has little spoken lines that she can say to herself to get into a certain accent or get into a certain way of talking.
Oh, that's smart.
She mentioned this one character in The Wheel of Time. She uses a Welsh accent for him, and she mentioned the line she used, and she says, sometimes I can't get into it, so I have to stop the recording and just say the line, and then I can start the recording again and get into the way he speaks.
Very cool. So she has all these little tricks and tips up her sleeve. She's obviously built her way around narration.
Yeah, I would say she's learned. I would say that reading the ones in 2015 and 2018, the Jane Austen ones, I'm not sure if she was in quite the best frame of narration at that point. Like you can hear a little more vocal fry and how it's not. She doesn't vocal fry like amazingly, like horribly, like that, like I just did. But she you can hear a little bit of just she's not quite. It seems like she's not quite sure of what she should do,
right.
But maybe because it's fantasy, she feels more free to just go with it. You know, like when it's Jane Austen, it's classic literature. I don't want to be too crazy with it. At the same time, there's still a range of characters in those books too that you have to distinguish between. So, yeah.
Is it also that she just wasn't as well practiced in narration? You think, like
possibly? I mean,
honing her craft.
One's not sure. She's also done some voice work for some animation, and she did like movies of video games, I think mostly, and then she also did an audio game, which I've been having fun playing. I hadn't played it when it first came out, but it's Evidence 111, and it's got like really good actors in it. And it's one of those choose your own story kind of games. So you choose how the character goes through the story, and there's like 11 different endings. And Rosamund Pike is not the main character, but well, in a sense, she is a main character, but she's like she's not the person that you're playing, but she's really good in it, and it's really cool.
That's really fun. So what else? Like she's been up to the narration part, I'd say, quite recently, but then she's got her first Audie under her belt now, so that's kind of cool. Anything on top of that she's done, if like not to cater for her narration, just to kind of bulk up her repertoire of I've done everything, because that's what it seems like.
Yeah, she likes to keep people guessing. Like she was
Nice.
A Bond girl for a while, and then she does serious. Not that Bond isn't serious, but it's sort of action adventure. She's done a lot of different action adventure stuff. Jack Reacher, and she replaced an actress in Wrath of the Titans who had been in Clash of the Titans. But she couldn't do it, so Rosamund replaced her. And I didn't see those movies, so I don't know how well it worked, but I'm sure it worked fine. And she just keeps on doing stuff. she tends to be the executive producer of almost everything that she does. So whether it's just the way her contract works, like she tends to be kind of as in control as she can be about her own sort of destiny within the things she does. So that's really cool. And yeah, she just she keeps on giving interviews. She's pretty accessible for the most part. I saw a couple of YouTube people who just randomly do YouTube shows, and she was on them, so that's really cool.
Oh, like she's on YouTube channels?
Well, yeah, like a couple people's. I just saw a couple sort of talk show type things, but they weren't. I mean, they were just people doing YouTube talk shows. They weren't like famous talk shows or anything that I would ever have heard of. But,
right.
Yeah, she just keeps on churning them out. She did the second Wheel of Time. She's done the third one, which is coming out in June. And this is interesting because they are Macmillan re-releases. So anyone who has heard the audiobooks of the original ones, I don't know what you would think of them, but because I came to it just with Rosamund Pike, I love it. But the original ones were done by Kate Redding and Michael Kramer. So Kate Redding would do the female parts and Michael Kramer would do the male sort of points of view parts. And so there might be people that are nostalgic for those ones, but I really think and the Jordan estate was involved in it. So I think this is a really good choice. It's just really, really great.
Yeah. I like that she was adamant. I mean, going back to what she could have done, right? Like, which was Oxford English, and then thinking no, because I like the fact that her parents were opera singers. She was just kind of brought into this and goes from there to kind of make her way through all of it. Continues with her theater and her TV and her film, and as you said, she's either keeping people guessing or just trying out a little bit of everything, which is so nice. And honestly, she took the honor of the Audie Award quite seriously because she came to get it appear in person, right?
She went to New York, and I think the other guy, Seth, just because he lived in Oregon, he couldn't make there's lots of reasons why he can't be there. That's not a bad thing, but he had to accept virtually, which was an option because still it's sort of COVID times, and they did an in-person gala, but you didn't have to come. And Rosamund came. I don't know if she'd been in America at the time or what, but she came, and it was really amazing because everybody said she's not the usual person to come to an Audie awards gala. She's sort of a bit of a higher end kind of person, the way she looks and that kind of thing. People were sort of commenting on all that.
I appreciate that because we know that it's still growing, the reputation for the Audie Awards, or just, people taking in narration as seriously. And as you said, people were still kind of like, oh my gosh, she can narrate. So it's just kind of yeah, she can. And we love it. So it's nice. And it's cool when narrators take on, or I guess it's not just on the narrators, but when publishers, production companies, Audible takes on different narrators doing classics again. I don't know. I find that, is it risky, or is it just that you're catering to a different audience when you do that?
Well, I think I've seen, in the old days, in the really old days, I've seen abridgments of books tied into movies, say, and recorded by pretty famous people. And I think they've had varying results of success. But when you actually are auditioning and I'm assuming that she had to try out. Probably not too hard because she was the star of the show and it was kind of a capitalization on that. But yeah, to reissue things, I think it is risky because I think, look at the controversy between Jim Dale and Stephen Fry. They're just two different issues. They're two different publishers that issued the Harry Potter books. And people have these controversies about who's the better one. And so it can be a bit risky. But I think generally most people are nice enough to just say, okay, fine,
Yeah. If we're willing to read it again, I might try another narrator.
Yeah. Some people get very attached, of course.
That's what I'm thinking. It's the nostalgia you pointed out, and just that it was released so much before the second iteration. So you're like, I'm attached. I'm not going to try a new one. But hey, she's I was even a bit skeptical
I admit, when I heard her that she won, I was like, oh, it's because the series was on, and maybe there's no. And then I listened to even just the sample on Audible, and I went, okay, we're gonna have to get this book and read it, because it was, you could tell she was doing her homework on how to do it, and yeah.
And that's why we dig deeper on Know Your Narrator and get to know these people. Sara, thank you so much. This was awesome.
No problem.
We are doing Know Your Narrator once a month here on AMI Audiobook Review with Sara Hillis. I'm your host, Ramia Amuddin, for this podcast, technical producer Nisreen Abdelmajid. And until next week's episode, happy audiobook listening.